I chose to do my speech on the discrimination against homosexuals. The first article that I read was it was about lesbian and gay students who are discriminated against. It was by Jerry Foxhaven. He shows several different cases where a student is discriminated against because of being gay or lesbian. Some of them in those cases weren't even identifying themselves as being gay or lesbian, and they had, like, one of the cases, the boy went home and asked what gay was. So in some of the cases they haven't even identified themselves as gay, but just because other students thought they were gay, they were still tormented, and they were made fun of, they were bullied. In the case of Derek Hinkle, he was bullied so much. Jerry Foxhaven presented his case that he was bullied so much that they put him in a community college setting program, which made him no longer eligible for a high school diploma. There was the case of Paul, who the principal had allowed to go to prom and have a male escort, have a male escort him to prom, and then after that the student was not allowed to, because he sued the school, the student was not allowed to take a male escort and was beat up. And I mean, there's a ton of these cases where there's physical violence, but nobody chooses to do anything about it. Nobody chooses to fix the situation. So then therefore that's why we're in the position we're in, is because nobody tries to fix what's broken. Instead of helping somebody, you're really hurting them. You're setting them up for failure in their future, because by not giving somebody an eligibility to have a high school diploma, that's hurting somebody's future, because without that high school diploma, there's not really a whole lot in today's world that you can do. It's really hard to get a job without a high school diploma. It's hard to do anything without a high school diploma. Then there was a case where in Jerry Foxhaven's article, that the student had had very high grades, was on the National Honor Society, was in different clubs, and was, the advocate for the Board of Education for students. And because he was bullied and identified as gay, the colleges were no longer accept him, and he was no longer eligible to be in any of the clubs that he was previously in, which that's just making our problems even worse. You're not fixing what is broken, you're making them worse. That is the way that, by saying it's okay, then that's the reason why they're being bullied, and it's okay because nothing's ever done about it. And then you're also putting children in danger of, suicide. We're advocating for not anti-bullying in schools, but what happened here? What happened in all these cases? There wasn't any kind of anti-bullying in their schools. The principals didn't even do anything to prevent this. So in these cases, the schools did nothing to help the students. I personally would never want my child to come home and be constantly thinking, what did I do to deserve this? Or constantly thinking about committing suicide. The second article I read was by the National Institute of Health, published by J. Youth Adolescent in 2009. It shows the data on students who are lesbian or gay versus heterosexual students, and how much emotional distress that they face for being lesbian or gay and identifying as them. And by emotional distress, meaning suicidal thoughts, attempts. This article showed that those students who are lesbian or gay are more likely to report being bullied than students who are heterosexual, and their health, their mental well-being, and the statistics in this article are, what we want for our children in today's world, our youth? I mean, they're focusing more on bullying someone who is identifying as gay than they are their education or learning what they should be learning. They're not getting the education they should, because they're bullying somebody, but also the person who is being bullied is not getting the education that they should, because they're so worried about what's going to happen today or what's going to happen tomorrow when they go to school, and then they're having to be kicked back and forth from school to school. So there kind of needs to be an advocate on, children being bullied, because we're not putting very many good resources into place for those children. The third article I read was Pride and Prejudice, Employment Discrimination Against Openly Gay Men in the United States. And it's by Andreas Tilsic. In this article, he explains how he made 3 different resumes. They were fake resumes. He sent them out to companies just to prove how gay men are discriminated against when getting a job. And out of all of the resumes, 11 men who were not gay were called back more, or 11% of men who are not gay were called back more than the men who were openly identified as gay men. To me, this makes no sense at all, because I would rather people be working and doing their part in society than to be at home not doing what they're supposed to, or soaking up government benefits. I would rather them not be soaking up government benefits that could be distributed to someone who really does need them very badly, and then this person is trying to get a job, but then when they send in their resume, they're not being called back because they're openly gay. That makes no sense to me. I would rather somebody be working to pay their bills than to be sitting at home on the government, taking in something that somebody else could be using because they couldn't get a job because somebody denied them that job. And then these people are still human. They still have lives just like everyone else does. They have bills to pay. They have families. They have children. Just because they're gay doesn't mean that they're not human. And it doesn't mean that they don't have things of their own to take care of. So we just need to be more understanding sometimes of people in society, because they are still human. If they're not affecting you directly, then why not just leave them alone? Like, if you're not hurting me, then I'm not gonna say anything about you. If you're up in my face or something like that, yeah, maybe. But if they're living their life and they're trying the best that they can to get an education or to get a job, then let them get a job. Let them get their education. Have somebody in a school as an advocate for these students. You have counselors for straight students, so why not have a counselor for them, so that they can go to and talk to them instead of being bullied. This concludes my speech on discrimination against homosexuals.